attention, please?
I'm Hermione Granger. And you are?
Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts.
Let me introduce you to your new defense against the dark arts teacher. Me?
Together we shall cast ourselves into the future.
Don't call me Nymphadora.
I'm Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. I'm Rita Skeeter.
But of course you know that, don't you?
He's not Fred, I am.
I will have order.
Professor Snape. Professor R.J. Lupin.
I prefer Sir Nicholas, if you don't mind.
Merlin's beard.
I mean, I'm just Harry. Just Harry.
The reason why I became involved with Potter was the characters. I loved these characters and I related to these characters in some way. Each one in a different way.
The characters, they are well drawn, they are multi-dimensional and unpredictable and funny. Even more than that, I think, is the fact that the relationships between them are so clear and so beautifully written.
And not just the primary characters of Harry, Ron and Hermione, but the secondary and tertiary characters, the teachers and the students. They've seen each other go through highs and lows. They've been on the journey together. And when we're making the films, we really do look at the story and the characters first. That's the heart, that's the soul of the film.
Harry had a thin face, knobbly knees, black hair and bright green eyes. He wore round glasses held together with a lot of sellotape because of all the times Dudley had punched him on the nose. The only thing Harry liked about his own appearance was a very thin scar on his forehead, which was shaped like a bolt of lightning. He had had it as long as he could remember, and the first question he could ever remember asking his Aunt Petunia was how he had got it. In the car crash when your parents died.
I've always said that Harry's not a hero. He's a hero, but he's not a hero in the Superman sense of the word hero. He's a very vulnerable, fragile kind of hero who is incredibly afraid.
And it's somebody coming to terms with that. And it's about, the importance of friendship, which he learns to rely so heavily on Ron and Hermione.
He had just raised his wand when the compartment door slid open again. The toadless boy was back, but this time he had a girl with him. She was already wearing her new Hogwarts robes. Has anyone seen a toad? Neville's lost one, she said. She had a bossy sort of voice, lots of bushy hair and rather large front teeth. She was so much like myself. I mean, I was seriously nerdy. And I was very kind of insecure like she was. I was quite a tomboy. I wasn't super popular or anything, so I basically was her, to be fair. Now, I used to sit there in interviews and be like, I'm not like her at all, and try to convince everyone that I wasn't. I was absolutely adamant.
I've never been top of the class, and I've never read loads of books. I've always been totally the opposite, really. But my mum was a lot like her. Real swot at school.
I've just accepted it now.
Hello, dear, she said. First time at Hogwarts? Ron's new too. She pointed at the last and youngest of her sons. He was tall, thin and gangling, with freckles, big hands and feet, and a long nose. That doesn't really describe me at all, really. Especially the tall part. I'm ginger, that's the main thing.
Joe Rowling asked me to read this here today. Having seen Dan Radcliffe's screen test, I don't think Chris Columbus could have found a better Harry. I'm also delighted to see that we're going to have a screen Ron and Hermione who can bicker as though they've been doing it all their lives. Chris's choice of 3 wonderful British actors for the leading roles shows how well he understands the spirit of these books. I wish Dan, Emma and Rupert the very best of luck and hope that they have as much fun acting the first year at Hogwarts as I had writing it.
I think I'm a tiny bit like Harry, because I'd like to have an owl.
Dan, at his core, is essentially a really good person, and I felt that that's what Harry was. Harry has a goodness that you really can't explain. You can only see it in someone's eyes. When we were doing the first movie, once they got the job, once they were on the set, they were all so excited to be there. Yet at the same time, getting them into character was difficult, to say the least.
114, take one, A and B cameras.
All right, Dan, I want you, when you open that book, really big reaction. You're scared to death. You close it as fast as you can and put it back there. Set, and really loud. Actually, you can shake the book a little yourself, Dan, okay? Set, and action! Those early days were part filming and part acting lessons. I was striving to get a performance out of these guys. Footsteps! Footsteps! They couldn't have been any greener.
Gary,
I thought we had to talk about the cloak. Sorry.
The kids bonded immediately because they were all thrown into it for the first time in their lives as actors. The lack of experience certainly bonded them in a way where they were committed to doing their best, even at that young age. You go down to the bars, there's no such thing as magic to the bars, then you close it. And then you go join Dudley in there, okay?
It was overwhelming because, particularly with something like Harry Potter, when every kid's got their vision of what a character is, what a place is, you know, what Privet Drive is. You're not going to obviously please everybody, but you hope that the majority of people will see that what you're doing is right and correct and fulfills something that they've got in there.
Now, Richard, play it like to that. You know.
I think a lot of the actors were anxious that they would live up to the iconography of all of those characters.
It was tricky in the beginning because with the world of Harry Potter, there are parameters, and in that world, Dumbledore wouldn't do that, Harry wouldn't say that, and sometimes it's quite hard until they get really immersed in the world.
Who do you think it was that carried you out of your parents' house Halloween night 10 years ago? Who do you think it was that took you to Dumbledore? You can't go and think, what would Spencer Tracy do here now? Because most people haven't played a giant, so you're kind of on new territory. Better than school, isn't it? Excuse me. Hagrid, I figured he'd move very, very slowly, because anyone who's 8 foot tall and probably weighs about 550 pounds is not going to turn around quickly, because the last time he did it, he probably killed somebody. So I figured he moves in quite a sort of ginger, rather delicate way for fear of breaking things, and sits down very, very slowly in chairs, and hugs people very gently, you know.
I still need a wand.
A wand? Oh, you want Ollivanders? There ain't no place better.
You have to use your imagination of what you think it would be, and from the script you feel the style of the piece. And when you think you've got to understanding the style of the piece,
I wonder.
Then you're getting close to what the reality of the piece will be.
I always turn to the books. They have details in the scripts don't.
One of a wizard's most rudimentary skills is levitation.
I studied that scene, particularly his charms class, because it has little details in there. He was a gnome-like wizard, which tells me he's not quite human, so that's where the voice came in, the kind of slightly pitching it up a little bit. He stands on a pile of books to teach and falls off of the book, so he's slightly clumsy, perhaps. So all these little bits of information can be added to build up quite a vivid picture of a character.
Another year gone. Gryffindor wins the House Cup.
Harry Potter is all about beating the clock. You didn't want to wait another year to start Chamber of Secrets because the kids age so quickly that they'd be too old for their roles in that particular book. So the films essentially needed to be shot back to back to back to back.
Set and action.
Do you think it's true? Do you think there really is a Chamber of Secrets?
I was really excited to come back for a second because I felt like, okay, I kind of know what to expect now.
But if there really is a Chamber of Secrets, and it's really been opened, that means...
The heir of Slytherin has been returned to Hogwarts. The problem is... No, sorry. Can I do that again?
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, can I again?
I felt marginally more in control.
Really sorry. Really sorry.
All right, save the red. Camera reloading. Hardly any of you remember that my favorite color is lilac.
You can't just put an actor who's only done a little bit of work in with these incredible stage actors and these incredible film actors. You need another legendary actor.
Gilderoy Lockhart came slowly into view, seated at a table, surrounded by large pictures of his own face, all winking and flashing dazzlingly white teeth at the crowd.
You may find yourselves facing your worst fears in this room. Know only that no harm can befall you whilst I am here. I must ask you not to scream. It might provoke them!
I was absolutely thrilled when it all came to pass. He's just a wonderfully puffed up character. He's deeply, deeply, deeply in love, but with himself.
He pretends to be humble.
He's wonderfully cowardly.
He pretends to be brave and strong.
He would sell his best friend down the river.
Pretends to be a gracious person, but in reality...
fantastically unreliable.
Complete and utter phony.
And those are all qualities that it was good fun to play.
I didn't get rid of the band and banshee by smiling at them.
First day I got there, I saw a crew list. I might expect to see 150 names on a normal crew list on a big film. 1,500 names, I counted them. That makes you sweat a bit. I'd love to know whether J.K. Rowling modelled him after anybody in particular. Some people might say, oh, it's like any number of actors or public figures. In crude terms, he's comic relief. And sometimes he's rather more than that.
Do you think he's all right?
Who cares?
B camera mark. Set and action.
Out of my way, Potter.
Draco's dad, his name's Lucius Malfoy. He comes into the story and makes everything the Malfoy name a bit more scarier.
Mr. Malfoy crossed the shop, looking lazily at the items on display, and rang a bell on the counter before turning to his son and saying, "Touch nothing, Draco."
What did I say?
Touch nothing.
Exactly.
Sorry, Father.
The camera loves him, and unfortunately, the camera loves him in a really evil way.
Jason has a wonderful sort of ability to be theatrical, but with a darkness. And you wanted someone who could play the character who had this sort of elevated sense of self, who was quite superior and disdainful.
My sole concern has always been, and will always be, the welfare of this venerable institution and its students.
Cool. I'd watched the first film and I'd seen what a horrible little git Draco is. Like everybody else, I despised him and wanted to boo him off the screen. And I was trying to take some inspiration from who he was, and so I thought that partly my job was to help you understand why he turned out like that. So as much as I could get on screen, I was just a bully, terrible father.
You see, Weasley, unlike some, my father can afford the best.
The Malfoy families and the Weasley families are polar opposites. The Malfoys are about order, structure, and rules, whereas the Weasleys are more hippie. They're much more of a unified family.
We have a very different idea about what disgraces the name of wizard, Malfoy. Clearly.
Arthur Weasley is actually, you know, the real deal. He's a proper dad. Apparently, I didn't know this, but J.K. Rowling said that he's the only real father, the only functional father, which actually he is. The others are kind of surrogate fathers.
Your sons flew that enchanted car of yours to Surrey and back last night.
Did you really? How'd it go?
I mean, that was very wrong of you boys. Very wrong indeed.
The Weasleys, the sort of family anybody would want. But sort of homespun and from years gone by, you know, from the 50s is what they look like to me. And it's something that people hark back to, isn't it?
It's Harry's idea of a good home to be in. And so I think that's what Harry really loves about them.
It's not much, but it's home.
I think it's
brilliant.
If after I've done the old expendo ding dong,
Yeah.
if I let down and then picked it up in some
That's it, yeah.
sort of way. Although the young members of the cast were inexperienced, they were the centre of the film. You know, we're supporting them.
Dan, you're looking at it in horror.
Well, of course, that can sometimes happen. They were growing as young artists and young performers, and you could see them acquiring knowledge as they went.
Now, kids, one thing everybody's forgetting. After his spell, everybody goes, Emma, really big reaction from you. You're staring in horror. This is your friend, okay?
Emendo! You really felt the sort of learning power, the learning spirit of Hogwarts was alive in the very sort of process of the realization of these roles.
It was definitely a curse that killed her. Probably the Transmogrifian torture. Encountered it myself once in Ouagadougou. The full story is in my autobiography.
Sometimes we, as adults, actors, we can complicate things and try and find something that's maybe not there or add something when it's not necessary. And sometimes the simplest approach, the most direct approach to acting a part is the most effective. And the kids can teach you that kind of thing.
If someone says, run over there and scream like an owl, or run over there like a dog, you just do it because that's what you've been asked to do. You don't think, no, what is my motivation? Why am I doing this? You just do it because you're so young. Yeah, okay, where am I going? Over there, run.
I had arrived ready to work with children that were younger than me and less experienced than me. Was my last shot of the film, was where Lucius flounces out of Dumbledore's office, and there was no line there. And I said to Chris Columbus, I just feel like he'd say something on his way out, having been humiliated. He said, well, try something. Let's do it again and try something. So we were shooting, and Dumbledore dismissed me, and I turned to Daniel and I said, let us hope Mr. Potter will always be around to save the day. And Daniel stepped forward and he said,
don't worry, I will be.
It was absolutely electrifying. It was fantastic, and I flounced out the room. And at that moment, I thought, that's not a kid. That's a 13-year-old actor.
In the first film, I wouldn't have done it. But in the second, I kind of have a bit more confidence with putting ideas forward and trying new things. And so if I'm in a situation in the film, I think, how would Harry react to this? I've developed as a person so much, everybody on set has. Especially me, Rupert and Emma.
They've been working for a year and a half, so these kids are actually becoming seasoned professionals. It used to take 10 or 11 takes to get to a certain point in their performances. Now it takes 3 or 4.
Come on, Harry.
I didn't know I could speak past the time. What else don't I know about myself?
I think even the adults have developed.
I find this probably the most difficult part I've ever played.
Let the feast begin.
Because there is no sort of classical reference in it whatsoever, and you're left basically to your own sort of devices of what you want to make of it. I just found that the only way I could play it was to sort of find the voice.
Most importantly of all, and pay attention, please.
And you have to sort of find a rhythm to it, you know what I mean? Like music.
The third floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds.
It's developed into a community now. It's almost like an actor's repertory company. And it's really much easier now. We all get to know each other and relax with each other. We trust each other. So it's been smashing like that. It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
We got to the point of editing the second film, and Richard was getting sick. And I remember going to visit Richard at the hospital, and he was very ill. At that point, the doctors were saying he was going to get better, he was going to be fine, but you just had a sense that he was not going to get better, that he was really frail at this point. And he said, the last thing he said to me is, you better not think of replacing me. And I said, don't worry, how can we ever replace you? And that was really the last exchange we had. And then he passed away 2 weeks later.
There was certainly a sense of great loss. We'd lost a great actor, we'd lost a really nice chap, and we'd also lost Professor Dumbledore.
He was always very, very kind to me. He was great, you know, in our scenes and helped me. When he died, I was very, very sad, and also I think it was more or less the first encounter with death.
Dan was much closer to Richard than I was, but I still spent 2 years with him. I was really shocked. Richard always seemed so alive. I know it sounds like a weird thing to say, but with so much personality, and he was always laughing and joking, and it didn't make any sense to me.
So it's Lumos Maxima once, doesn't work. You get frustrated, so you throw the second Lumos Maxima, and the second one is going to be the huge one.
Like, should I see something in the book that tells me to do something a different way?
I think that you already read instructions. It's more about...
Perfecting it now?
No. The word is expectations. When you have expectations, things doesn't work.
Okay.
You know, when you act...
Okay.
You know what I mean? Chris Columbus have done an amazing job setting up the universe. The directors that followed Chris, all of us were very lucky that Chris made such great decisions. But there were places where I wanted to take this universe that were not present in the 2 previous films.
Alfonso was kind of amazing to work with.
When it comes just from your heart or from your own energy, then is when it happens, okay?
Okay. It was a big step forward, I think, for us all working with him, because we all had to meet a whole new set of challenges.
So we'll take 6.
Lumos Maxima.
On, off.
Lumos Maxima.
On, off.
Lumos Maxima.
The first thing that I did with the 3 kids was to talk about what was important in Azkaban that was relevant for them as real people. Let's do something, just to get our timing right. I said, okay, I want you to write an essay in first person, you as Harry, you as Hermione, and you as Ron. And I want you to tell in this essay the story of your life from the standpoint of Harry, but investing that Harry with your own personal experiences and your own personal emotions.
He was really interested in what we all thought of our characters, and it was his way of getting to know us. I loved writing down all my thoughts on her and scanning through the books to find quotes to back up what I was saying, and I loved that he had asked me to approach the role in an intellectual and personal way.
It was one of those moments where we felt, oh right, okay, we've got to start making decisions for ourselves now as well, because Alfonso isn't just going to, you know, spoon feed us the emotions. He wants us to find them for ourselves. And it was right, because at first we needed to be told what we should be feeling in these moments, and when Alfonso came along, we were all a little bit older, and we all had to start making these decisions for ourselves.
Emma, being Hermione, wrote something like 30 pages long.
Emma just came in with reams and reams of paper.
That had this brilliant purity.
I came in with one side of A4.
Daniel wrote something with raw emotions. Rupert, being Ron, didn't deliver the essay.
It would have been quite helpful had I done it. I actually forgot to do mine. I think it was around some exams as well, and it was quite a lot.
And actually, when I questioned why you didn't deliver it, says Ron would never deliver the essay. So I said, okay, you understand your character, it's perfect.
We just did what our characters would do. It's just works, isn't it?
Now, what do you want me to do with these ferrets?
Show me.
Just go like...
What would you do? Show me. Maybe
so
you just separate
what are you
one.
saying? So I take one off here, take that on my shoulder, pick up the other one.
Or once that they start getting some confidence, they will question absolutely everything that I would do and why I would do this like this or things like that.
Don't you think it should be a bit skirmish?
Skirmish means?
Well, I'm carrying dead ferrets on my shoulders.
Remember something. I was new. They've been Harry Potter and Hermione and Ron for a long time. So they were very good with their arguments about what Harry or Hermione would do or not.
Alfonso wanted us to put a lot of ourselves and our thoughts into the characters.
Hello. Okay, let's find out what feels organic with you. Hi. And what feels organic with the character. Early on, we said, okay, how would you wear your uniform? First, they were all Titus says, yes, but if your parents were not around.
He said that you should, like, customize it how you would if you were really at school, so it feels more natural.
They start doing weird things with ties or taking the shirts out. Some of the kids stocking everything and trying to be very neat.
We all started wearing Slytherin rings, Slytherin tie pieces.
And the hairstyle was pretty much dictated by the kids. Because we wanted to be something organic, the hair, the uniform, and the attitude of each one of the actors.
You go on living, but you have no memory. Your sense of self, you're just a shell.
You told us the script that you've been given. If you don't feel that it's natural or that it works, then you just say, and we can change it.
An empty shell.
Well, if you feel saying no sense of self, if it helps, keep it.
Yeah, it floats.
It floats, okay, so keep it.
What I loved about what Alfonso did with it, it is that sense of rebellion. You realize that you're in a different world now. These aren't kids anymore.
And this one, Hermione, she's rock and roll. She's girl power. She's out there doing everything.
Foul, loathsome, evil.
Malfoy insults her, and instead of keep walking, just ignore him. That's it. Smack.
I remember agents start calling about possibilities to play Dumbledore. I remember David getting so upset and said, we're not going to discuss this for a long time. You know, he didn't want to go there. And I respect and admire that quite a lot. And then once that we needed to start moving on, I think that it was very clear that we were leaning very, very rapidly towards Michael Gambon.
Welcome, welcome to another year at Hogwarts.
There's a grace and there's a dignity and there's a weight there. And Michael's very mischievous in his own sort of special way.
In any press conference that he was asked, how do you feel stepping into Richard Harrod's shoes, he would pretend that he didn't know that he was replacing somebody. He would go, oh, am I?
What Michael Gambon has brought to the film is something very special, because I think he's acknowledged Richard in giving Dumbledore a little bit of an Irish accent, but he again has made the character very much his own.
We must search the ground. Well, search the skies if you must, Minister. Meanwhile, I'd like a nice cup of tea or a large brandy.
Something of the slight changes that we wanted to do is that we wanted to recover one element of the Dumbledore of the books, that is a certain, rather than a regalness, a certain funkiness. He could seem a little shabby and a little distracted, but actually he's completely in control of everything. And that's something that I think that Michael brought onto the table in really beautifully. One more time.
The lines came out, but they're all jumbled.
Dumbledore is who Dumbledore is by the very nature of what Joe Rowling wrote. Wise, eccentric, with a twinkle in his eye. He doesn't replace Richard. He is doing Michael Gambon's Dumbledore.
Dear lady, who did this to you?
It's him, Headmaster. The one they all talk about. He's here, somewhere in the castle. Sirius Black!
Don't tell me you've never been hearing of Sirius Black. He's a murderer.
Throughout the whole first part of the film, the big villain, the big danger is Sirius Black. And there's a twist in which you realize that actually Sirius Black has been a good guy all along. Not only a good guy, is going to become the new father figure for Harry. So we needed an actor who could not only play the two different parts, but play the transition to the different parts.
Gary Oldman as Sirius Black. There's a kind of rock and roll quality about Gary. And he's not that old, but he kind of feels like he's been there forever, really. In a good way, in a really kind of rebellious way.
The world has read these books, so I'm not going to be everyone's idea of Sirius Black. I'd like to think I haven't, disappointed anyone.
Gary said that he's one of his most difficult characters to play because he says, I'm used to masks. And he said, this Sirius Black is so raw. That voice is mine. I'm not playing accents, I'm playing my own accent. I'm not playing mask, pretty much this is the way I look. And emotionally is dealing with something that is so close to him, that is his relationship with his children. So I think that you can see that rawness in his relationship with Harry.
The first person I was consciously quite scared of working with was when Gary Oldman came in. By that point, I was more knowledgeable about film and about drama, and I knew a lot of his films. So working with him was very frightening.
It's cruel that I got to spend so much time with James and Lily and knew so little. I kind of treat Harry like an adult, really. And also I'm living a friendship through him because he's so like James, who was my mucker, my mate.
But know this, the ones that love us never really leave us.
So I'm a man very much emotionally rooted in the old days, when we were the young order.
I found that when I would see the flashbacks of the parents of Harry, James was a very cool dude. In their youth, James, Sirius Black, Lupin, Peter Pettigrew, they were this mischievous crowd.
Alfonso had this idea that we were a little like the Beatles. That kind of Abbey Road look. And that Sirius was a bit of, he's a little bit reckless. So we were thinking that he was kind of a little bit like the John Lennon of the group.
Well, well, Sirius, looking rather ragged, aren't we? Finally, the flesh reflects the madness within.
Well, you'd know all about the madness within, wouldn't you, Remus?
Lupin was another new character we're going to introduce in Azkaban. There was a lot of discussion who should play this.
Nobody quite does troubled as well as David. Preoccupied. It's like there's always something at the back of his mind, like he's forgotten something.
My goodness, you poor thing.
You remember the sensation then?
Oh, this is Lupin.
Lupin needed, in a way, the opposite journey than Sirius Black. If Sirius Black was going to be from a very dangerous character, turning him into the most lovable character for Harry, here was the other way around.
Run! All of you! Now!
It was how you have a character that is absolutely full of love and understanding, then to realize that he's a monster, and you see him back and you don't judge him because you still love the pure side and the bright side of this character.
A favourite teacher, you know, is how Harry describes Lupin, and indeed J.K. Rowling describes where Lupin comes from for her. And so I sort of look back at some of my favourite teachers when I was back at school, my English teacher, my drama teacher, my art teacher, who took me under their wing. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, most of my scenes are with just Dan. The nice thing I found was that he's a remarkably wonderful boy, now young man, and so it wasn't difficult at all to feel affection for him and to feel protective of him.
Ridiculous!
Emotionally, it was never a kid hanging with a werewolf. It was this kid hanging with his favorite uncle who has this disease. You know what I mean? It was always finding the reference in the universe that we know.
Well done, Harry. Well done.
Another new character introduced in Azkaban. Professor Trelawney and Emma Thompson agreed to do the character.
Tonight, he who betrayed his friends, whose heart rots with murder, shall break free.
I thought about the character, and it was just the first thing that occurred to me was, if she's always going, look beyond, if you're always looking beyond, then you can't see what's there. So I thought, if she hasn't looked at herself, she can't see herself, then she must look all sort of undone and not at all well put together. I did have buttons here once, but I don't know where they are. They've gone.
She took the character of Trelawney, and what she did was so great. Says, yes, in the book, she whispers all the time. He says, I don't know if we're going to achieve necessarily cinematically what is in the book just by whispering. And so she started doing this balance of whispering and screaming.
Crystal gazing requires that you clear the inner eye.
Emma Thompson became like the big teacher for Emma Watson.
Maybe young in years, but the heart that beats beneath your bosom is as shriveled as an old maid's.
Little Emma, she was at awe that she was going to work with Emma Thompson. She thought she was going to meet this very aloof genius. And what she received was this person who was just trying for everybody to have a good experience while we were working together.
I loved Emma Thompson. She treated everyone with exactly the same level of respect. And if I keep acting, which I hope that I will, I hope that I would be how she is as an actress.
I do wish I was with you until Christmas. But it's been gorgeous. Thank you so much. It's been such an honour. I've loved it. I have.
Between the third and the fourth, there was more of a break. You know, there was a much more substantial time off. It was just great to be back here with everyone who I've got to know so well after the last few films.
It's kind of like we were back for a new term at Hogwarts, literally.
But I always get quite nervous when you sort of find out it's going to be a new director, because you spend a long time with them, so you get quite close, and it's quite nerve-wracking to see what sort of person it's going to be.
Now, would you listen to me, please? There is no point in any of us being here unless you are good. And every one of you has got to show with their face, with their body language, with everything visibly, that it is unbelievably dangerous. It's not just thinking about Harry Potter. We all know Harry Potter's for the kids, right? Well, not this one.
Mike Newell has a real professorial quality and was very much a taskmaster and encouraging them to capture the essence of the characters they're playing.
Mike Newell's such a big personality. He's so British.
It was so loud, and like if he said something, everybody would shut up.
It's about how you pay attention. It's about how jumpy you are. It's about how you respond when he shouts at you.
It's really sort of quite scary sometimes.
They don't know me, they don't know what I want, they just know that they have been told to sit up straight and fold their hands in their laps and pay attention.
Action!
Stay away from me.
Fine. You would say something to them and they'd say, yes sir, thank you sir, very good sir, yes sir. And you'd think that's not it at all. There were these two called the twins, who were brothers to Rupert.
Yeah, Jamie's this side? Right, okay, Jamie, you go first. Am I looking at the right bloke?
I still can't remember which way round they are, but they're heavenly boys.
Here we go, muscle juice, everybody.
And I'd staged a little bit of action in the corner where they started a kind of sort of pushing fight, which I then wanted to ignite into something more serious. They did a very sort of stiff. I said, no, come on. You know it's not like that.
Cut! Cut it! Cut!
He comes over and looks over the top of me and goes, right, which one of you two wants to fight?
Okay, who wants to fight?
Like a fool, I said, yes, okay, I will.
On came one of them, I don't remember which one. With me trying to bang his end of the stones and him trying to bang my head on the stones.
And he starts like throwing me around, so I thought, okay, I'll throw him around.
The rest of the children couldn't believe what they were seeing. This director is rolling on the floor with so-and-so.
One of the crew had left something on the floor, and as I threw him onto it, it turned out he bruised or cracked his rib or something like that.
So I had to be helped up off the floor like the old man that I was. And of course they found the whole performance absolutely hysterical. And I, at that point, stepped over a line with them, and they kind of knew I was all right.
He let it all go and made it really unintense, unrestricted, which helped us immensely. He really had the characters going totally different to what we'd done before.
I
Goblet of Fire allowed us to expand beyond the walls of Hogwarts. We just were able to see that the wizarding world was a much bigger world than we'd been accustomed to.
Please greet the proud sons of Durmstrang.
Durmstrang and the Barbatons both have much better opening chance than us, and I'm pissed off about this. Stan, you're a Durmstrang. Would you not agree that your blokes have got and the Barbatons have got a much better entrance?
We met the Durmstrangs, the Beauxbatons, who were quite exotic by comparison to our sort of English public school.
They come in doing martial arts, and ours is the Hogwarts, Hogwarts, teach us something, please.
Hogwarts, 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 teach us something, please. Hogwarts, 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 teach us something, please.
So we bid you truly welcome. You are a funny lot.
We now have our 3 champions.
I'm Clémence Poésy, playing Fleur Delacour in Harry Potter.
In a way, she is what English think a French girl would be. I mean, she's very chic and very, Miss Perfect all the time.
Victor Krum is the Bulgarian seeker. He's described as more of a physical being rather than talkative.
Cedric was just already a pretty fully written character. He's a pretty significant part of the book. He's quite competitive, but he plays fair and he sticks to the rules like he should.
So who's the standing right next to you?
Ron. Come on, get my name right. I don't know, I think it's just Ron. Hey, what's my name? You look at the script, I think it's just Ron. Doesn't know my name. What's my name, Rob? What's my name?
That's that one.
Hi, Kerry. That's that one. This is plain rude.
On Christmas Eve night, we and our guests gather in the Great Hall for a night of well-mannered frivolity.
Harry falls completely in love with Cho Chang and asks her to the ball, and she's already got a date. That's what I like about Harry, is he's pathetic at the whole romance thing. He's rubbish. He's no good with girls, he's no good with dating, he doesn't know how to be around girls. I'm actually a really fantastic dancer, but because Harry's not very good, I felt I should play it down.
Ron's changed a bit, like, he's a bit more mature now. He's got a bit more comfortable around girls and that, which is quite fun to do.
Now, don't swing your arms, okay? What's happening is that you're coming on as a perfectly normally dressed girl and you're not, okay?
I was so nervous about the whole thing, because it's meant to be such a big moment.
No, it's lovely.
I got down about 3 steps and fell down in front of the whole set, which was incredibly embarrassing. People barely recognise her. People are saying, is that really Hermione Granger? Is that her? It's about, again, as usual, her feelings for Ron, which will underneath the surface.
The whole point of the tournament is magical international cooperation. To make friends on ice.
Ron, he went through quite a hard time in that. I think he's got a bit more than friendship on his mind. There was a lot of jealousy going on and he wasn't in a good place at the ball.
Are you going to ask me to dance or not?
No.
Alistair Moody, ex-Auror, Ministry Malcontent, and your new Defence Against the Dark Arts teacher!
You know, Mad Eye's his own man, and when it comes down to it, he's a gunslinger with a wand.
What appealed to me about him was the fact that he reminded me of some of the teachers of the old school. You need to know what you're up against. You need to be prepared. That whole notion of tough love and all that kind of thing.
Brendan Gleeson has a real challenge in this to play a man who is not who he seems to be.
And Brendan goes into such tiny, specific detail when he's making the character. He developed this wonderful shiver.
They say I'm mad!
Which, as soon as he'd had a pull on his flask, which everybody thought was booze, there would be this kind of as it gets it up to the nerve ends.
What was it like? What was he like?
Who?
The Dark Lord. Shh. Don't say his name.
You know who.
We do not speak his name.
You know who.
Whiter than a skull, with wide, livid, scarlet eyes.
Voldemort had been talked about for so long, and the build-up to Voldemort arriving in the books is just immense.
And a nose that was flat as a snake's, with slits for nostrils.
I remember reading, and then his face turns round, when Voldemort's face turns round, and just thinking, wow, wow, wow.
Lord Voldemort had risen again.
How do you create that character who has such an effect on an entire universe that some people have followed him, and most certainly a huge number of people have been intimidated by him, and that he is a worthy adversary for not just Dumbledore, but ultimately our hero, the chosen one, Harry Potter?
There was only one that we were truly interested in, and it was Rafe.
I was just aware of it as a very successful franchise. I hadn't bought into it. And actually, the thing that made me excited was the artwork that Mike Newell showed me about the look of the character.
There were a lot of tense discussions about his look. To his great credit, David Heyman, the producer, always said, you've got to make his face weirder than just a human face. And that's going to take you doing something with the nose, which Rafe and I were both vehemently opposed to. And then we did some drawings, and then Rafe suddenly said one day, you know, it's not half bad.
The nose is flattened to suggest the physiognomy of a snake. It was just a gut feeling about, oh, that's an interesting and daring and challenging, hopefully scary look.
We're approaching the graveyard set.
Wasn't going to slip on screen quietly. It came on and hit it with such ferocity and viciousness. There's something incredibly primal about what he does as Voldemort.
When he popped up and he was very fleet of foot, he was like a dancer. He plays it with a lightness and a mercurialness and a sort of sensuality. There's attractiveness about it, although he looks like some weird mixture of reptile and sort of broken, fallen angel, doesn't he?
Fate, Harry. That's what brought us together 13 years ago.
The hard thing is, he's really a personification of, quote, evil, which I think is impossible to play. I mean, you want to feel there's a living mind and a brain behind any of these so-called villains. Where I start from is the idea of love is repulsive to Voldemort. You can't help thinking that he's been cheated of it. So therefore it becomes a thing to despise and to destroy.
When dear, sweet Lily Potter gave her life for her only son, she provided the ultimate protection. I could not touch him.
It would be easy for Voldemort to become this kind of archetypal bad guy, but Rafe imbues him with some very scary corners.
He wasn't just a block of ice. You could see that there were an enormous number of things that were going on just under the surface with him.
You can't play the whole scene on one note, so you've got to look for the little gradations and nuances. So you try things.
How lies have fed your them. Do you know where you're standing? Do you know where you're standing?
in trying them, stuff happens. It gets more fluid, it gets more fluent, I suppose, more fully inhabited.
No matter. Things have changed. I can touch you. Now.
Mike Newell was quite keen that we didn't deny the moments of overt visceral rage and a sort of ecstatic rage and a delight in a way, a sort of sadistic delight in the power he's got.
Attaboy, Harry!
I think you can sometimes cheat yourself and the character and indeed the audience of those kind of red-blooded moments. At the same time, I'm trying to find a balance. Mike just said, don't go all subtle on me. Let me see a few moments of craziness.
I didn't want to talk to Rafe that much, simply because I know that I'm not a good enough actor to actually be talking and then suddenly have to turn around and pretend that he's my worst enemy.
1073, take 2. B camera, A on the end.
Maybe in 10, 20 years I might be able to do that, but now I know that I can't.
Pick up your one, Potter.
So I didn't want to get into big conversations with him just, before we were doing takes and things.
Don't you turn your back on me, Harry Potter! I want you to look at me when I kill you! I want to see the light leave your eyes!
That's, I think, the most focused the set has ever been on all 4 films. There was a real sense that the last 3 films and everything we've done in the 4th film up to this point, it's all building up to this scene, to this confrontation with Voldemort. This is not only what a lot of the wizarding world have been waiting for, it's also what the audiences have been waiting for.
Let's go!
So I think we all felt quite a big sense of responsibility.
Let's do it again. Very good. Very good. Very good. All right, once again, right away. We're printing.
If the 4th film was all about young love and what it's like to discover the opposite sex, one of the emotional drives of this film is how we all have a right, really, to be quite complicated and have a difficult time when we're in our teenage years.
The films are growing up, they're maturing. And we thought that David would handle that brilliantly.
I'd just love to try one. Just where I walk straight up to him and he turns and he has that look of slight surprise on his face. And I deck him.
Let's do it now. Let's do it now. Let's do it now.
Yeah, cool.
He always wants the atmosphere to be created in the room, which obviously I think is very important. It helps out whoever's in front of camera. If us behind camera are sort of playing up and really acting out the scene, and it's not just sitting back and going through your lines.
Here we go. So we've got to up the energy, guys. It doesn't feel like a dance. It doesn't feel like you're enjoying this moment,
You've really got to give them a hand to help out.
You need to really bounce it up. Okay, here we go, and action! Come on!
He's more in the subtext, into what the character is really thinking. Not what he's saying.
I just somehow, there's a big story between the two of them. They've been on too many nights. Yeah, I can see them. They've been on too many nights together. Yeah. It's one of the things I love about the job, that you're working with people who are interpreting characters and presenting characters. And one of my favourite bits of directing is exploring these characters with the actors who make them real.
If I'm not pushed sort of relatively regularly, there is always a danger that I will get complacent. If you're doing a few scenes where you can sort of drift through it, you sort of start thinking, oh God, will I be able to really hack it when I get back into the big scenes?
There's this moment where he's with Snape.
It appears there is a connection between the Dark Lord's mind and your own. Whether he is as yet aware of this connection is, for the moment, unclear.
And he's going through the whole occlumency lesson. It's a really interesting journey for Dan to take as an actor.
You mean if he knows about it, then he'll be able to read my mind?
Read it. Control it. unhinge it.
It's actually quite a complex bit of acting, and we were on like take 7, and I said, "We'll just keep going, Dan. We'll just go straight for another take. We won't break it."
And action.
Here there is a connection between the Dark Lord's mind and your own.
And reset once more. Reset, please. Then we can move. And I'll go for take 8, take 9, and we'll get to take 12.
And action.
And I can see the determination in his eyes that this time he's going to really make it sing. This time he's really going to crack that moment.
It was very intense. We were in there for about 3 days.
Concentrate, Potter. Focus.
I've never been as pushed as regularly as I am on this film. David Yates is fantastic at helping me to find new levels of character.
It's one of the reasons I felt so good about coming back again was because, yeah, I'm back for a 5th time, but David, he's really going to teach me something.
Okay, let's shoot, guys. Number 1, please.
I really love doing research for a character. And, like, I have to know everything. I have to understand every single... I'm practically a Harry Potter lexicon. Like, you could ask me anything, and I will basically know the answer. I think Ivana beats me, but just narrowly.
Hello, Harry Potter. I've been a fan for ages, so I always wanted to be in the films. And then when Luna came into book 5, I really want to be her, you know? So, what's your name? Ivana.
We did this casting call. 15,000 people show up. I think we'd been anticipating a couple of thousand, and it went bananas.
The queue went around block after block after block. It was frightening to see how many kids came from all over the UK to audition for Luna.
I wasn't nervous because, like, I know Luna so well, and I was thinking, someone has to get her, you know, and I could do it.
It was a complete long shot that she was going to get the part, but she came in and immediately you knew that she was special.
Unfortunately, all my shoes have mysteriously disappeared. Personally, I suspect Margot's are behind it. I thought, I'm going to do my impression of Luna, but my vision, what I think of her.
I saw the tape, and basically the gist of it was, listen, if you don't cast me, that's okay, but, you know, you'll have made a big mistake, because I am Luna.
And I just want to be true to Luna, you know? But, and if you don't like me, well, that's not my fault. It's just because you have a different image of me, you know? So, okay. And they were saying, oh, you come back for a screen test, and you do a screen test with Daniel Radcliffe. And I was, what, you know? I thought I'd be doing loads of auditions. Mistletoe.
What's fascinating about Ivana is she's such a fan of Harry Potter. And when we're on the floor and we're working, she becomes Luna, because she's obsessed about her.
I think I'm more determined than her, because I don't think she'd stand in a queue for a few hours. That's a Gryffindor trait, I think, really being determined about things.
And that was the difference between her and all the other girls who we interviewed for the part. The others could play Luna. Ivana Lynch is Luna.
This is the Black family tree. I hated the lot of them. My deranged cousin. There's some very evil goings on in Black's history. Like my cousin.
Bellatrix Lestrange.
My cousin who's gone wobbly.
She's got, obviously, a personality disorder. Harry Potter.
Helena came in and we really threw it around the room. She was determined that we never took a straight line with Bellatrix. And so Helena's did some really crazy stuff, some of which has ended up in the film and some of which hasn't.
To be or not to be. It's like an acting exercise, isn't it? I'm definitely milking every moment that I have. I've probably got about 4 lines. I keep on trying to give myself more lines.
And if I start talking, Gary, just let me talk, improvise.
I'll stop you.
I also had great fun creating her, the look of her. Originally, I think they sort of said, like, black sack, and I thought, I don't want to have a black sack, because I'd done witches before, and I'd done the hag look, and I thought, I've got to be sexier. I also had the feeling that because she's in prison for 14 years, there's a dilapidated quality to her, in the way that she was once intensely glamorous and very beautiful, but is sort of gone to seed.
You know, you can't dress Helena and say this is it. Helena needs to be able to help create that costume because she's expressing that character. So she needs to express the costume too.
A costume is really important. Sometimes I can't get a character, and then suddenly you put something on and it's like, oh, there it is. You know, the first day it was like, well, how does she walk? Because she's very clumsy. I thought maybe she'd walk, you know, with her legs out, you know, kind of, and then tripping over. But the idea that she's trying to be an adult, she's the youngest person in the Order of the Phoenix. So slowly they kind of developed it. You know, the boots were the first thing. I was wearing high heels with pointy bits. And they were like, no, these big boots that's what makes her sturdy and what trips her up a lot.
We also wish to welcome our new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, Professor Dolores Umbridge.
In the book, of course, she's described as very ugly and toad-like, and I love people saying, oh, you'll be great for that part. Thanks very much. Because she's quite hard. I thought that was quite important to have a caring sort of look. So we've had a lot of fun with it, and the shape. Just a little round, woolly person. It's just not very nice.
I thought Imelda was very interesting to watch.
No, I'm not doing, but what I am saying...
A lot of actors, you know, do the same thing. Well, I've rehearsed it, decided how it's going to be, and just do it and do it and do it. Whereas Imelda was very flexible. Like, every take would be something different.
Things at Hogwarts are far worse than I feared.
Things at Hogwarts are far worse than I feared.
Things are far worse at Hogwarts than I'd imagined.
She just sort of works away at it and is very meticulous about it.
Something you'd like to say, dear?
Oh, there are several things I would like to say.
Each term, as it were, there are fresh teachers that come in and give everybody a lift.
Blah, 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 blah. Disloyalty.
Oh. It's a magic place to be. I don't think I can get it. Oh, disloyalty.
Yes.
Minerva McGonagall and Dolores Umbridge are two very distinct characters who are very different. But both characters are not what they seem on the surface, and I think that's a very big element of Jo's books.
On 3 I went, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to be an actor. But 3 was when I made that decision. And on 5 I had a moment where there was a scene between myself and Sirius at the tapestry when Harry's wondering if he is turning into a bad person. And Sirius says,
"You're not a bad person. You're a very good person who bad things have happened to."
And it's the absolute line that sums up Harry's situation.
Harry feels, I guess, it's a lot of shame and a lot of guilt.
I just feel so angry all the time.
And Sirius just basically says, we have choice, and it's just what we do with it that matters, that defines who we are. You don't often get to do scenes like that.
When I first saw that scene, it was the first time I looked at it and went, well done, that was good. That was like proper acting then. You couldn't see the joins. And that is in part to do with the fact that I have Gary Oldman around at the time.
And action. Dan adores Gary, really respects him and his craft.
It's just this whole thing at the beginning, you know, well, what's life without a little risk?
And it's a great privilege to see the way he'll take Dan aside and talk to him.
How many films have you done?
40-something. There must be now. Yeah.
How long have you been acting for?
22 years.
You have 40-odd films, 22
Something like that.
That's pretty good going, and stage work.
Yeah, I did stage as well. I would do a movie, a stage, a movie, stage, movie, stage.
I just watch him and I learn so much when he's around, and I think I raise my game.
Your expression's fantastic.
Even without knowing it, I raise the stakes of what I'm doing, just because I know he's involved.
book purist, so I've read each one of them 3 or 4 times each.
I usually read them before we start. I always found that. I was quite late reading the last one. I did read it. And I really enjoyed it. I did, yeah. I mean, I read it quite... I left it quite late. I was probably the last one to read it.
In the world, ever.
Probably. But,
in the universe.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the last book.
Don't listen to it. No, I'm glad that you read it. I do believe you.
6. I mean, it's got its intensities and its, you know, its dark moments, but it's actually quite fun.
Hello, sir. Wonderful to see you. So, what brings you here?
Oh, the 3 broomsticks and I go way back, further than I'd care to admit. I remember it was just called 1 broomstick.
I've worked with Jim Broadbent before, and I knew his capacity for both comedy and for pathos would absolutely bring so much to the table for Slughorn.
We had a few conversations about his vulnerabilities and his strengths.
These are mad times we live in, mad!
Sort of homing in on the essentials of a character.
Any ideas what these might be? Yes, Miss...
Granger, sir. For me, the feeling of this one for Hermione's character is that it's much more of a romantic comedy. It's much more about relationships. This is Amortentia, the most powerful love potion in the world.
That's my one. I think Lavender, she's coming in to literally alleviate the darkness and to provide humour. This is actually where I had my screen test.
We just gave her Rupert and said, OK, you're auditioning for Lavender Brown. Do something to Rupert that's very lavender.
Within 2 minutes of meeting him, like, lie on his lap and giggle.
I'm your sweetheart.
That's my 1-1. I had to sit here and there was a big plate of biscuits and Rupert was sitting here and I had to lean across him and get a couple of biscuits. Do you want?
No, I'm fine.
And poor old Rupert sat there while Jessie kind of poured and sort of bounced all over him, doing very sort of lavender brownish things.
We didn't sort of kiss or anything, which I was sort of half expecting.
So embarrassing. Can't believe. Ron uses her, really, to instill jealousy in Hermione. And in the end, the extreme of Lavender's character actually causes, you know, Ron to see the greatness in Hermione and what they should be together.
These girls are gonna kill me, Harry.
People, I think, underestimate Rupert as an actor because he is so funny and he makes it all look so easy.
Hello, darling. How's your drink?
I've sat in screenings with audiences who watch what Rupert can do, and he obviously connects with them really brilliantly. That's the comfort zone the audience have with him. It's Rupert. He'll be funny and appealing, but he can do really serious, straight stuff. And we're seeing stuff Rupert do in the Hallows Part 1 and Hallows Part 2, which is really grown up and dark. You watching, oh God, it's really powerful.
As an actor, your job is to be somebody else. And I love that. I love the challenge of playing somebody else. But when you're playing the same character for so many years, it can get quite tedious. But I was quite lucky with Neville in terms of he evolves so much over the years that every time I come back, it's like playing somebody else. Expelliarmus! Look at him. He can do spells now. He's not as shy as he used to be. He's not as vulnerable. He stands up for himself, stands up for his friends. And every year just bringing a little bit more into it, a little bit more, and adding layers. And that is even more challenging than playing somebody else completely.
Everyone, please, quiet, please.
Shut it!
Thanks.
In order to focus where your character moves for each film from the book, you've kind of got to bring the character on, you know, in each step, because otherwise you'd just be playing the same sort of tone throughout. I think in the first few ones she's really shy and she gets really embarrassed around Harry and you know, other people. She's kind of quite contained. But as the books go on, I think she understands he isn't just the chosen one and he isn't this special character, he's just who he is, and I think that's kind of why they end up together.
And Jack, good. Bonnie, that was excellent. Check the game. That was terrific.
It's all about truth and honesty and finding the reality and humanity in each character, whether they be on the light side or on the dark side.
Roll, please.
Lizzie, you can't do this. He can't be trusted. The Dark Lord trusts him. The Dark Lord will take him.
Avada Kedavra.
There is this deep, dark secret that Snape is carrying, and I always wanted that to be obvious. From the very first time Snape looks at Harry, and you've seen the first film, when Snape is looking at Harry, there's something much, much deeper going on.
Harry, what is it?
Where shall I... Nothing. Nothing, I'm fine.
I don't think anybody but Joanne Rowling is sure about him. You know, he seems to be one thing, and then constantly pulls the rug out from under your feet.
Second center!
Well, here's the thing, is that he had a separate conversation during the first movie with Joe Rowling. So Alan knew something that none of us knew. He may have known the secret that exists in Book 7. I don't know. He never told us. He said he knew something, and his performance was based on that conversation.
You dare use my own spells against me, Potter? Yes. I'm the half-blood prince.
The space that Alan puts between words sometimes, you can feel an entire auditorium hanging on that pause, and they absolutely adore it.
I can't change the Dark Lord's mind. But it might be possible for me to help Draco.
Is it true, he said? They're saying all that down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment. So it's you, is it? Yes, said Harry. He was looking at the other boys. Both of them were thickest and looked extremely mean. Standing either side of the pale boy, they looked like bodyguards. Oh, this is Crabbe and this is Goyle, said the pale boy carelessly, noticing when Harry was looking. And my name's Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. He starts off as the ultimate sort of slimy head git, if you will, and he slowly, very slowly, matures to the sixth film where he realizes that he wants more than just a sort of two-dimensional relationship with Harry. He wants to get involved, so to speak. Enjoy the ride back to London.
I think it's been quite frustrating for Tom.
Take your hands off me, you filthy squib!
In the fifth and the fourth and the third films, because Tom had so much more to give.
I don't want your help. Don't you see that I have to do this? I have to.
I was so glad when I read the script that he had such a big role.
And action!
It's like seeing a new character. Because Malfoy becomes so much more complex, conflicted. You see him struggle with his own identity and the task that Voldemort's given him.
The thought of someone seeing him this week is like, I mean, that's the moment we should explore,
Sure.
I think, as well as the emotion of it.
All right, well, if we play around with it and you,
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll have a look.
give us a thumbs up when it's a good one. All right, mate. David and I have had great fun sort of talking about where he is in each individual scene, in mind state, and what's he thinking, and it certainly gives you a lot more things to play with, really.
Severus. Please. Avada Kedavra.
The thing that Dumbledore's death did was to steal Harry and to really focus him on the task ahead, because before he was the foot soldier who was under orders, and now it was different. Now he was the one who was having to make the plans.
So if you were to turn into Bonnie's shoulder there, just show us what that might look like. Yeah, that's it. And Bonnie, if you were to just put your arm around Dan, and you just hold him, because he needs to be held now. That's it. That's a great shape, if it feels comfortable. I think it feels right. Yeah.
Next, guys, come on, quick as you can, come on, with me.
Everyone had read the books, and it was such a big moment for all the fans. Within Hogwarts, it's obviously quite a thing to see. You know, you're someone you look up to just completely lying there. And I think it was difficult for all of us.
In the series of stories, this is a very big deal. all right? So we have to create an atmosphere here that you can cut with a knife, that we can all feel. And it's not happening, all right? It's very emotional, it's very moving. And if we can feel it collectively, then we might get something special this evening. All right, so you have to all start tuning in and making it quite real. Otherwise, we're wasting our time, okay? All right, so let's go for it, guys. So let's everyone in position.
After a few takes, slowly everyone did kind of feel that same feeling. I think that was really amazing. Kind of in the middle of the take, you could not really hear anyone breathing or anyone kind of making a noise, and everyone was concentrating on one thing.
Dan said to me once, you know, if we have a challenge with a scene, he says, you know, one of the reasons I find it difficult reaching for this is because, you know, my experience of the world is quite limited. But as he gets older and he starts to move into his own adulthood, he suddenly discovers, you know, how challenging the world can be, you know, as a young man. And that's kind of paralleled with how Harry starts to grow and mature in terms of dealing with Voldemort and the dark forces. You know, and Dan carries a lot as an actor as well, I think. I mean, it's extraordinary. I don't know how he or Emma or Rupert sometimes deal with it so brilliantly.
I didn't feel a huge amount of pressure. It's only recently I've started to feel pressure. It's not pressure to please other people, it's pressure to please myself now. It's pressure to make sure I know I'm doing as much as I can. It can get tough because you can start becoming self-conscious and full of doubt and things about whether what you're doing is actually any good, especially when you've been doing it with one character for a long time. But, you know, you have to sort of power through that and just keep giving as much and just trust the director to be able to guide you in the right direction.
At the beginning, I was so sure of who she was.
Gryffindor!
At the beginning, she was just this bossy little girl and she wasn't very real. And now I feel like I'm playing somebody very real and very complex, and I think it's got harder. I think it's got a lot harder.
Here we are talking as we're filming the 7th film. And we've had the most incredible cast. I mean, we've been very lucky people want to be a part of it.
Who's your favorite character? Harry! Everyone! Everyone!
You've got these wonderful actors who I would dream of building a movie around. And in Potter, I get them for 5 minutes and they come in and they do their bit and it's great, and then we move on. So it's a real privilege.
Hard to believe. It'll be us leaving one day.
It's impossible to say really why these films are so popular, but something about those three, Harry and Hermione and Ron, exploring the themes of friendship and betrayal and trust and fear and courage and love, has engrossed the whole world.
And the relationship between the three of them in the films simply has translated into life. There they are. They have the same relationship between Rupert, Dan and Emma as between the characters.
Obviously we've been through a lot together, we've been through this whole experience together, and we've got quite a strong bond in that sense.
To see them on film and to see how far they've come, they've really developed into some fine, wonderful actors.
A lot of the audience have grown up with them, and that's unique. There's a set of characters here that you've seen mature and develop and change. I think that's kind of a beautiful thing. There's probably no series quite like that.
Thank you.